Hello everybody, Joel Tabman here from Golf Monthly, and welcome along to West here where I'm going to be testing out the brand new Titleist T-Series irons. There's 4 new models to talk about: the T100, T100S, T200 and the T300, all replacing irons of the same name from the previous range. If you want to find out more about the technology incorporated into these irons, do go on the Golf Monthly website to find out more about that and some of the spec options available and things like that. But in this video, we're really going to focus on how these irons have evolved in terms of the looks and the performance. The way we tested these irons was pretty thorough actually compared to how we normally do things. So we went along to the brand new Titleist Performance Fitting Centre at Woburn Golf Club. We spent a good day there getting custom fitted for all the irons, testing them out on the beautiful practice area, getting some initial data from all the 4 new models. But then we got sent our kind of custom fitted spec in all of the irons. So I've got my Project X 6.0 shafts here with slightly longer in length and a little bit more upright in the lie angle. So these are built for me, and then I took them along to Full Swing Golf at Silvermere to get some launch monitor data to really quantify exactly how these new irons perform. And now we're going to hit them on the range, give them a thorough test so you can understand the way that the looks have changed and also the feel and sound of these irons, because a big thing that Titleist is saying about these new irons is how they've improved the sound and feel. So let's get stuck in, hit some shots with these clubs, see how they perform and see which one might be right for you. So let's hit some shots now with the T-Series irons to give you a flavour as to what they're all about, starting with the T100. This is an absolutely stunning looking golf club from every angle. I love the new kind of tour brush satin finish on it. I love the symmetry of it, and down behind the ball, you know, it doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. It's nice and compact, designed for, I'd say, the elite player, the tour player. So maybe some low handicappers as well. We know Jordan Spieth has put these irons into play at the Open Championship and did pretty well there. So, you know, hallmarks of a very low handicap club, minimal offset, very thin top line. You'd be forgiving for looking down at it and thinking it was a muscle back. It's that compact down behind the ball. And let's hit some shots so you can really get a flavour as to what this iron's all about. It definitely prioritises feel, and I think you'll agree it feels great once I hit a shot. It's a really, really soft, crisp feel. It feels absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and with these denser tungsten weighting, I'll pop the launch monitor data up on the screen now so you can see, this 7 iron has a loft of 34 degrees, very traditional in the way it looks and the way it's set up. And, you'll see from the numbers, pretty good distance, and actually it was quite consistent. Definitely on heel and toe strikes, I felt like it was more consistent than I was expecting, more forgiving than I was expecting. Bottom and top on the face, so those low strikes did lose a little bit more distance than those heel and toe strikes, but I'd say it's actually surprisingly playable for an iron that is so compact down behind the ball. And actually I've got the old 620 CB model. I say old, it's actually staying in the range along with the MB model as well. And I'll hit a shot for you with this club, and so you can hear exactly what it sounds like. I think you'll agree, it actually feels very similar, and I think given the way that the T100 feels as well, you've got to question, I think, the position of, or the place of the C620 CB iron, because this iron, the T100, is giving you just as good a feel. It's giving you a little bit more forgiveness. It's still giving you that workability, and so I don't think you're sacrificing a great deal by switching into the T100, and you're getting a bit more forgiveness and a bit more playability. So very, very impressed with the T100. Then we move into the next iron, which is the T100S. So very similar in the way it looks. It's basically designed to give you that same amount of feel and workability, but with a bit more distance. That's because it's stronger lofted, so it's 2 degrees stronger down at 32 degrees. And the important thing that Titleist have done with this is maintained the turf interaction that you get through the ball. So you haven't strengthened the lofts, and that hasn't been sacrificed. So you should get those kind of crisp, large divots through the ball when you hit the T100S, and you'll notice it feels very similar. Really, really soft, pleasing feel at impact. And looking at the launch monitor data, this was about 4 yards longer for me on average with the 7 iron, which is kind of the minimum I would expect with a 7 iron that's lofted 2 degrees stronger. I was probably expecting 1 or 2 more extra yards, but does deliver the extra distance from those stronger lofts. And actually the impressive thing I found with this was that you're not losing out on the height or the trajectory, which is something that I would worry about with an iron that's stronger in loft. It was a very similar peak height and very similar spin, slightly lower but not a great deal. And I think, don't forget, this iron has in the longer irons a muscle cavity that you can see here down behind the bottom of the face. So that just helps with the launch angle, and that definitely delivered the performance that I would hope for from an iron like this. And then we transition into the T200, which is kind of drastically different in terms of the way it looks and the way it's designed versus the 100 models. So you can see here it's got this kind of polymer cap on the back which encloses all the technology. So it's got max impact 2.0 technology, which you can read about on the website. So it kind of looks like almost like a hollow iron. You could argue it looks like a blade, but it's just this cap that maybe looks like metal, but it's actually kind of like a plasticky material. But Titleist say it should improve, with the ribs they've incorporated into it, the sound and feel of this club. And at address, the looks wise, they've really tried to make it a bit more towards the players category rather than game improvers. So they've reduced the offset on this T200. It's actually the same amount of offset as the T100, and it just looks a little bit more forgiving down behind the ball because the top line is much thicker. I've got a 4-iron here. And now you can actually see the back of the sole behind the top line, but it's a little bit more inspiring, looks a bit more user-friendly. And if I hit one for you, you can hear exactly what it feels like. Great strike. That was a really good shot. It's a lot hotter off the face, and I wouldn't say it's overly soft. Has it improved on the prior T200? Well, let's hit one and you can make your own minds up. I don't think that was overly soft. It still feels really fast. It doesn't feel harsh or clicky by any means, but this is the old T200, so you can kind of have a comparison in terms of what it feels like. See, I think that actually that one felt softer than the new model, so it's up for you to make your minds up, but I don't think the feel necessarily has improved with the T200. But looking at the launch monitor data as well, I wasn't getting drastically longer carries with the T200 versus the T100. It's only 1 degree stronger than the T100S, and as a result, I only got 1 yard extra of carry. This didn't really deliver the kind of step up in performance going through the range that I was expecting. I was expecting a little bit more distance, given it is stronger in loft and it's a bit more meaty behind the ball. So a little bit disappointing, but still a very impressive club. I play the TaylorMade P770, which has kind of a similar profile to this, and I think that feels a little bit softer all round. So maybe not quite delivering the softer feel that Titleist were claiming there. But then we transition into the T300. So this is kind of the more mid-handicap iron, maybe even high handicap iron. And down behind the ball, it's got all the hallmarks of, you would say, a game improvement club. So there's a bit more offset there. Definitely a much thicker top line in this 7-iron, and it's lofted at 29 degrees. So considerably stronger. I'll flash up data again. You can see this iron was delivering me much more ball speed, a little bit more distance, I think 4 yards longer than the T200. And I'll hit a shot for you now so you can see or hear exactly how it sounds. It's a much louder sound. So that was actually quite a high ball flight, but it was still a playable trajectory. That shot was actually quite high with the 7-iron. And it is delivering me more distance. Titleist have made this club, I think, look a lot better. It's got a more chrome style finish to it, so it should be longer lasting and just look better in the bag for a little bit longer. And the one thing that really stood out for me testing this club indoors on the simulator was the consistency of the distance, which is not really a feature you often associate with game improvement clubs. So I hit a good 7 or 8 shots with this T300, and my average carry was 174 yards, I think. And the shortest shot I hit was 172 yards, and the longest shot I hit was 176 yards. So yeah, that front to back dispersion was surprisingly tight, only 4 yards in it. It was very consistent, it's very easy to hit. And I think, even off center, you're rewarded with surprisingly consistent carry distances, which is exactly what we want with irons. We want the ball to travel a very specific distance, but also you've got that off center forgiveness to control direction as well. You saw there the ball flight was very stable. And I think actually this is the standout model for me in terms of playability and like the kind of appeal and improvements over the prior generation. Well, it's a little bit thin, but dead straight flight. I think that's something that you will definitely notice when you try this iron out. I've got the old T300 here, which I can show you. I think the new T300 looks a lot better. It has a lighter finish. This old T300 has a darker finish, and I think it definitely doesn't quite have the appeal of the new model. So yeah, it doesn't feel as hot, I don't think, as the new model. So actually testing all the irons there, hopefully that's given you a flavour as to what all the irons are about. where the big gains in performance are and where maybe where they're smaller in other areas. I think for me, T300 is a standout model in terms of extra performance you're getting it, and just that consistency of it and the forgiveness of it, I think is going to appeal to a pretty wide spectrum of players. It doesn't look chunky or oversized behind the ball. It looks really inviting to hit. But in terms of my own preference, I got fitted for all of the irons, went through a really long kind of custom fitting process to really nail down exactly what would be right for me. And I think given the way the irons are constructed and the progression of the lofts, I think a combo set is something that's going to be more appealing to more golfers this year. I think with the variety of the models, for me, definitely comboing the T100S with the T200 in the long irons. Don't forget the T200 is now one of the utility iron options from Titleist this year. You've got the new U505, which is slightly larger. If you want something more compact, you've got the T200 in the 2, 3 and 4 iron as well. And that's definitely something I would consider if I was to build my perfect Titleist T-Series iron set for 2021, it would compose T200 in the 4, 5 and 6 iron, then I'd transition into T100S. But the one significant change I would make personally is, for me, the T100S was going a little bit too far. I don't really want my iron shots to go much further than what they are at the moment. And so I think weakening the lofts by 1 degree, making them a little bit weaker, actually has a couple of side benefits for me. So actually reduces the amount of offset, which is going to help me miss left a little bit less. And it also just gives me a little bit more bounce. So the sole on the T100S is quite narrow. It's not sharp by any means, but I think you've still got to be quite precise with your strike. And actually, by weakening the lofts, just gives you a little bit more bounce, and that just gives you a little bit more margin for error on the strike. So that would be a dream combination for me, and I think something other golfers should certainly think about is, those so kind of spec changes. If you go through that custom fitting process, what would work best for you? So there you go. I hope that's kind of given you a clear understanding as to the performance on offer from all of the Titleist irons. I've been really impressed with the consistency of the ball flight, some definite progression in terms of performance through the range. I think certain players are going to fit into different camps depending on what you're after, but there's definitely an iron for everyone out there within the new T-Series range, ranging from the T100, prioritising feel, workability, really aimed at the really competent ball striker, moving all the way up to the T300, which for me is the standout performer. I found it to be really, really consistent. That front to back dispersion really stood out, and it comes in a lot cheaper. That T300 iron is £129 per club, so it's significantly cheaper than the other models, which are £164 per club. A £4 increase on last year, so not a great deal of increase. But if you have played one of the older models, I don't think you need to be rushing to upgrade into the new models, but if you're maybe playing the AP2s or kind of that era of club, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I think you should definitely think about switching, because the level of forgiveness Titleist have packed into these clubs, especially in the T100 range, is really, really impressive. And then the T200 just gives you a little bit more distance, transitioning up into the T300. And obviously you've got the option of the T400 as well, which remains in the range to give you even more distance of forgiveness. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this look at the T-Series irons from Titleist. Make sure you click the like button if you like what you're watching. Do comment on the video, tell me which iron you're most excited to try. Which one do you think is going to earn a place in your bag if you had to pick one? But that's all from me. From West Hill Golf Club, I'll see you next time.